So, welcome everybody. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and a live broadcast will be on YouTube. Just before we start the meeting, could I just read out something to you? Members may be aware that we are in the pre-election period with a City of York Council by-election for Heworth Ward taking place on the 15th of January 2026. Whilst the business of the combined authority continues, we do need to be mindful of avoiding giving an individual or a political group a platform by which they can influence public opinion in the lead up to this by-election. So please could I ask that all members are mindful of this during today's proceedings and our meeting. Thank you. So we will go through the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence, Will.
Thank you, Chair. So we've had apologies this morning from Councillor Steve Watson, Chair, Councillor Derek Basterman with Councillor David Chance substituting, and Councillor Jane Burton and Councillor Angela Williams. Thank you.
So on to item 2, the meeting of our last meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the last meeting. So just for accuracy, please could I have a mover and a seconder for these meetings? Okay, thank you. Councillor Fisher has moved those. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Stewart. On to item 3, declarations of interest. So, Will, would you like to read that for all members?
Oh, yeah. So all members are invited to declare at this point any interest that they may have on items on the agenda, including the nature of those interests.
One declaration, Councillor Merritt?
Yes. Can I just record that I'm a member of the York Bus Forum, which has a particular interest in bus issues and of their committee. But I believe it's not prejudicial.
Thank you. That is noted. Thank you, Councillor Stewart.
It's a very light one. So on the overnight levy, my partner owns a caravan park. Not actually, it's actually across the border. The North Yorkshire border, not the Lancashire border, anything like that. But yeah, just for information.
Thank you. That is noted. No one else is indicating. Councillor Peck.
I suppose theoretically I should declare that I'm a member of the Selby District Rail Users Group.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, I think that's everybody then. So thank you very much. So item 4 is public participation, and been indicated there is no public participation. Is that correct? Right. Okay then. So item 5. So could I welcome Mayor Scaife to our meeting? You've all had Mayor Scaife's report, so I hope that you've been able to have a look at that, read that. I don't intend to ask Mayor Scaife to go through his report, but if he wants to make any updates that he feels are relevant, that's absolutely fine. Maybe bearing in mind of what happened yesterday, etc., the new announcements. And also I intend to probably have the question and answers for an hour max, because I know Mayor Scaife's got other meetings to go to. Is that okay with you?
That sounds fine, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just give a brief, just to highlight a couple of bits, if I may, if that's all right. So just a couple of little things, something that we've been working on the CA very strongly since the beginning, actually, but particularly more recently ramped up now. We've been given the £40 million growth funding settlement from government for the next 4 years, which we're very fortunate to receive, because originally we were told that was only going to go to those core city regions, which we are not. So to be able to get that funding is great. And from that, we're now developing a framework to actually look at the investable propositions that we have for our region, which is something we haven't been able to do before. So now we have that framework, we can essentially assess business cases of projects that we want to fund now. So having that framework to give that, I suppose, that wider overview of things like the benefits, the job creation, the impact on local economy, that sort of stuff. So having that independent framework is going to be incredibly useful to have, which has been a really big piece of work to do. Just a couple of things on openness and transparency. For May, I will hold our hand up and say that as a CA, we've not been good enough on this, but we've made big changes recently to make sure that we are much more open and transparent, particularly on myself, and I've also committed to my wider senior offers in the Combined Authority to also be much more open and transparent on things like expenses, our travelling and all the rest of it. So we're doing on that as well. And that also takes into account things like doing this meeting every quarter, the hot seat on radio every quarter as well. So just making sure that we are as open and transparent as possible. I think we will actually technically be the most open and transparent mayor and Combined Authority in the country. So that's nice to know. Budget, as I say, yeah, just on the local growth fund, to be able to get that was tremendously for us. To say we were working on the assumption we were going to get anything, so to get 40 million is really good. We're obviously in the first stage of the overnight visitor levy, which I'm sure will come up in questions. Obviously, we're just in the phase now where we have the ability to actually go and explore what that would look like for York and North Yorkshire. The fact that we have mayoral power is a benefit for us, because what you don't want is things like to be one blanket way of delivering something, which we've shown with devolution doesn't work. Actually having a more bespoke look at how a tourism levy, overnight stay levy would work for York and North Yorkshire would be very different to how it would work in, say, a Manchester or other places. So being able to do that work now, the national consultation runs until mid-February, I think it is. So please, by all means, you can go out and fill that in and have your feelings felt on that. I have spent the last couple of weeks meeting with Tourism Advisory Board, the Hotel Association York, and others I were doing a couple of weeks ago, just to speak to them and get an understanding of what their concerns may be, but also the real positives that would come out of bringing circa £50 million a year into our region. We launched the Movement, Activity and Sport, and the fund for that is out now, and which has been incredibly well received. I think we've had something like 150 bids and moments of interest into that, which I think is the biggest we've had of any fund we've created. We've also had the men's mental health strategy, which the funding for that is open now as well. So those grants are open now for people to go and apply. And the work we do on the men's mental health strategy is actually made into the National Men's Health Strategy, which is a big credit to Professor Paul Galdos, who's been working on that, who's the professor from the University of York. He works on the national strategy as well. Active Travel Fund also is moving in the right direction as well. And we've now got our Active Travel Commissioner, Rhiannon, in situ as well, who's been in the last couple of weeks. Slightly disappointing from Active Travel that the ranking that both York and North Yorkshire have is 1, which is still 1. So that's why we've created that fund and why we've got the Active Travel Commission to get our rankings for York and North Yorkshire up. Essentially, the higher ranking you are, then the more funding you get. So because we only rate 1, our funding is quite limited on that. We've had our transport settlement as well, and local bus grant, which is allocated about £40 million. And we're also going to be seeing a very large increase in road maintenance funding. That's going from circa 60 odd million to nearly 90 odd, is it, Rebecca? Yeah, thank you. So which is a huge increase, which is taken into consideration, obviously, our large road network that we have, especially in North Yorkshire. Brownfield housing allocation, again, phase 3, that is 100% social and affordable homes on that as well. And also having the strategic place partnership with Homes England, which I think we're the 9th area to have one of those now, will really help us accelerate the housing that we really need to do and help to unlock those real challenging sites that we have. We also had the innovation piece that we're working with Tees Valley Combined Authority alongside University of York and other partners, which we launched in the Tees Valley quite recently, which again has gone down really well with government because they're really liking that cross-border working and working with other CAs to really add that weight behind some of our strength and capacity, which is really great. And we've got a Rail Innovation Summit that will be happening in spring, which we know, which you'll hopefully be aware, that rail innovation is one of the key growth sectors we've identified in the CA. So to have that coming forward is really exciting as well. Just a little touch on education, training, and employment. Probably after transport, the most money that we spend actually goes into this area. So about £73 million over my term, supporting roughly 41,000 people. So again, that's a huge amount of people that have been supported. And that's not just supporting young people, that's supporting all ages, particularly as we see industries changing, making sure that we have any age person has these skills to adapt. And also a big focus of ours is keeping people in work. We don't have high levels of unemployment. We do have unemployment, obviously, but not really high levels in other areas. Our focus is to really how we can keep people in work. I've been very fortunate as well the last couple of weeks to get out and see a lot of the high street projects we've been funding, which has been great to see so many parts of the county who have been able to be supported, particularly Malton as one. visited a few times and to see the work that's going on there, and particularly over in Scarborough. There's been excellent work happening on Scarborough on the high street things as well. So that's kind of a rough overview for me. Take any questions, Chair, if that's okay.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor Skate. Thank you very much. And I would just like to say from the Chair how much we do appreciate your attendance at these meetings. When we first started, we did say that we would like you to attend, and you have done, and we do appreciate this. So long may that last. So what I'm going to do now is open it to councillors, open it to the floor. I hope that everyone will be given an opportunity to ask Mayor Skate the question. So it's open to you, members. So Councillor Merritt.
Yes, thank you, and thanks the Mayor for the update and the positive news on the settlements. I'd particularly like, in the first instance, to pick up the tourism levy. At the last meeting, I was asking questions about that, and you said you were going to be working with Homes England in terms of their expertise. Is that work going to be able to be done in time to feed into your proposed submission to the government consultation on that? And can I also ask if there's going to be any wider public consultation and also specific consultation with the two local authorities in the area and the impacts that this will help to address?
Yeah, so on the levy currently, the national consultation runs till I think it's mid-February. I think it's 12 weeks, so it's going to be mid-February. We've commissioned York St John University to do that initial findings of things like finding out what the visitor numbers are into York and North Yorkshire, for example, what the average stay is, how long people are staying for, and all the rest of it, where people are coming from, and extra. And we're working on a wider piece of work with York St John, which will be finished by March time, which both local authorities will be able to feed into that piece of work now, as well as hospitality associations, our LVEP as well, which is made up of Visit York and Visit York and North Yorkshire as well. And they'll be able to feed into that as well to sort of make sure that we are warts and all, because we know there's going to be some concerns around this, obviously. So things like how we look to collect it, if it's going to be a nominal fee, if it's going to be a percentage, if we're going to look at, say, an opportunity where we don't charge people who live in York and North Yorkshire who are then holidaying in York and North Yorkshire, how we'll capture things like Airbnb and all those kind of things, impacts on things like a traditional, very affordable holiday for some people. You know, that's traditional, like sun holidays, where you can go on holiday for like £10-12 type of thing, making sure that we're not impacting those. So a whole raft of things that need to come out of that. And that's the piece of work that St John's are working on now, which will be done by March, which will also encapsulate like our local piece of work and understanding what our requirements are. But then also on the positive side of things, how that money can be used. So I met with a hotel association in York quite recently, and they were very interested in things like how it can be used to support training of staff and young staff in particular. Obviously, we have a huge shortage in the hospitality sector of chefs, for example. So how we can support employment in there, how it can be used to support particularly transport. We know that that's not just an impact for tourism, but obviously people who live here all year round are hugely affected by that as well. How we can ring fence money for actually promoting the tourism hospitality sector. So, for example, we've had British Cycling who have come forward asking us if we'd like to host a stage each year for the next 2 years in York and North Yorkshire, which would be tremendous. We saw the great impact of the Tour de France when it came in 2014, I want to say, and we know that the economic output of having like a bike race of that scale is a lot of millions, but it costs a couple £100,000 to put it on. Obviously, you appreciate things like road closures, security, all the rest of it. Well, that couple £100,000 has to be funded by somebody. So the opportunity for us to ring fence some of the levy to actually direct into things like promoting events. We get a lot of ask for film and TV to come and work here again, but again, that costs. So if we could ring fence some of that money specifically to promote the region on those sort of things as well. So that piece of work is ongoing now. Yeah.
Hey, could I just come back? One of my questions was about public consultation. Speaking as a Guildhall ward councillor that covers quite a large part of the city centre, we have quite a lot of citizen concerns about the impacts on their residential areas of both the growth of Airbnb, which has been quite massive over the last almost decade, and the impact that's having on local communities, facilities, and all the rest of it. So I'm quite concerned that, I mean, we're outlining all the positives in terms of engagement with the hospitality community and how we can actually boost visitors in the region. It's also those impacts on existing communities, I think, that are important to take into account. And if you read the papers, you've got these similar issues in Whitby's and other places like that. So I think that's an absolutely crucial part of the equation. The other issue is obviously all the impacts on local services.
Exactly.
There's a big financial burden on council taxpayers in terms of the extra local services demands. How much of that is, what part of the tourism levy can come back to the local authorities to offset the additional costs that they have in terms of delivering those services, and perhaps some service improvements. Frankly, some of those services are stretched, very stretched at the moment, and not adequate.
On that, if I may, Chair, just raise one example of that is, for example, the increase in people that come into York and North Yorkshire is fantastic, but the strain that puts on things like our frontline fire and rescue service, for example. So in the summer, we get increased amount of people on the road, motorbikes, we get a lot more people going to the coast, being in the water, all these kind of things, which puts a lot of strain on those frontline emergency services, which again, we don't get any extra funding for. So the opportunity to be able to put more funding in to support those services in those key times to make the area safe. Obviously, we see in York now, for example, with the Christmas market, incredibly busy, but again, having that extra funding to be able to make that environment safe for people again is a part that we'd love to be able to ring fence some of that as well, because that is an issue that is certainly faced in the region.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Hassan.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to piggyback while we're there. So the tourism levy is really quite an interesting one for me, and I appreciate the analysis that's being done. So thank you very much for that. But one of my questions, I've actually got three sort of questions here, but there's one critical one. One of my concerns is that we continually reinvent the wheel. And there's an awful lot of analysis that must have come from Visit Yorkshire, North Yorkshire's tourism thing. And I just hope that the analysis that's been from that is followed through and passed on, so that we don't have to spend a lot of money on stuff that's already been done. My second point is, does this investigation into how the levy might work take into account that Harrogate has actually put forward its own levy process, and that's critical as well, and that will only apply to the 15 largest hotels in Harrogate. Rest will not have this levy, so I think it's important. I'd like you to confirm that that's part and parcel of the consideration. And then also within the consideration, I handed you a book about food for North Yorkshire, and I didn't actually pick up on the fact that it would actually be quite useful. One of the challenges is that we want to make sure that there's great food available for everybody in North Yorkshire, but also who comes to North Yorkshire. And so there's a focus in there that says we want local produce that will help restaurants and the hospitality to actually be able to produce an exclusive Yorkshire thing. So I'd like to think that this levy is taking into account where it impacts elsewhere and how it can support. But my main question is about the Harrogate and how the Harrogate levy would fit with your levy.
Yes.
Would it be create a double levy on the hotels that are participating? I don't know.
So first and foremost, the work previously done, that has been taken into consideration. For example, both York and North Yorkshire sat around the table. So we have the LVET, which is made up of Visit North Yorkshire and Visit York. So the information that people like that have been heavily involved in that is also being fed into that. The Harrogate process, I am aware of that. We did speak to the Harrogate bit quite recently about it. I would imagine it's been a mayoral power that this will blanket York and North Yorkshire. So I'm not sure that there would be that option for Harrogate to have their own singular one as well. Obviously, if they wanted to go down that process, I'm not sure how they would install that though, because it would be a wide mayoral York and North Yorkshire one.
we need to find out, there's been a decision from North Yorkshire about, I believe, about allowing it to go to vote or referendum right now. So perhaps we need to we need to think about that.
Yeah. And then on the third piece, I suppose on the wider use of the fund, is that the kind of rough sort of question of how it can be used for?
Well, it's with a potential impact.
Yeah.
Because, so if we're not, so at the moment we've got about 4 billion a year coming from tourism, but the obvious areas to grow it are making fantastic restaurants for people to visit, not just etc., and also our local produce. Because if people come and like it, then we can export, even to Lancashire, but we can export.
Well,
yeah, but we can we can get our food known across the country.
Yeah, I mean, on that wider piece of some, as we touched on already, we have organisations such as Grow Yorkshire, which is part of the CA, which we've got a heavily focus on the food and farm and agricultural sector, which is one of our growth priorities as well. Earlier on this month, we had something like 20 DEFRA attachés visit us in York, and we brought a lot of our food manufacturers together to help them on the process of how we can work with them to export our food goods around the world. There's a big buy-in from particularly places like Japan, who are really like the authenticity of York and North Yorkshire brands in particular, and of the food brands, especially alcohol. There you go. But obviously we have a big focus on food and farming, and now with our Get Exported, part of our Business Innovation Fund, which has been really well supported in a lot of those smaller producers who wouldn't normally look at things that exported. We've been able to support a lot of those to actually start looking at how they can export and meet those markets. It's something we're looking to expand next year, potentially working with the Great Yorkshire Show about how we can bring a lot of our food exporters together with DEFRA and those attachés and with our Get Exported programme to actually support them to export, not just nationally, but internationally, because it is a real growth sector for us. Food manufacturing, a lot of people realize this is actually the biggest manufacturing sector in the country. And in York and North Yorkshire, we have the largest amount of food manufacturers per area here as well, not just the very large ones like McCain's and Nestle's of this world, but people like Heck and others as well. So it's a real growth sector for us. I think the levy, and obviously this hasn't been worked out yet, but I would imagine what I've been describing is it'll be very much used for like front foot stuff, so as in like supporting growing the economy and creating those jobs, not necessarily filling black holes. It'll be there to actually grow the economy and grow key sectors for us. And again, now of our growth plan, we have that, and we have that 10-year plan. Identify what our growth sectors are, and obviously the whole food and farming sector for me is in that and is one of those key areas, but we also need to understand how we're best placed to support that sector, which is why obviously we did the farming study not that long ago to really identify what those challenges are, but looking at the great opportunities. For me on the food thing, if I may, Chair, as well, just the two main things for me on that is actually the high nutritional value of locally produced high quality food, which is really important for better health outcomes, but also the food security element. We talk a lot about energy security and pharmaceuticals, but food often isn't. And I think if you saw during COVID, as soon as we went into lockdown, you couldn't get flour anymore, the whole world went into panic, didn't they? And it wouldn't take very long for people to not be able to get their avocados and bananas anymore, for everyone to start flapping.
Toilet roll.
Toilet roll, yeah, and all that, and all that. So actually been more self-reliant, particularly in the world we are, with things like the impact of war in Ukraine on wheat, the impact of climate on our farmers as well, and again, impacting a lot of our wheat and crops. Being more resilient on food is absolutely really important, but also that procurement piece, how we can get a lot more of our local food produced here. For example, eggs produced in North Yorkshire, how do you get those into North Yorkshire schools, North Yorkshire military barracks, the NHS and such like that as well. So that's a whole piece of work we're working on, which I'm sure is identified in that.
Very much for that expansive.
Sorry.
So thank you. I've got Councillor Waller, Chance, Stewart and Peckham waiting. So if you could just all be mindful of that. So Councillor Waller, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, it's getting more and more hazardous to cycle around at the moment. The recent wet weather has resulted in a lot of potholes appearing where they weren't, and having to carry a mind map of where they are so that you're not cycling into the puddle and coming off your bike is something that we're getting more and more used to, unfortunately. So I think my question boils down to, when HS2 was cancelled, there was the promise of vast sums of money into resurfacing roads. And now that you've appointed, I'm not sure what the process was, the active travel commissioner, And I hope that they will go out and actually see for themselves the situation on the ground for day-to-day cycling and look further afield than just the in-house York Cycle campaign. But there's a clear view on how you're going to make life better for people who are cycling, encourage more people to do that, and in the course of this, improve the road surface for all users.
Yeah, so as you'll be aware, Councillor Wall, we had a 16 million uptake in road maintenance last year, which is on top of the 40 odd that we normally got. And as I said, just touched our report, over the next 3 or 4 years, that's going to rise from circa 60 odd million to nearly 100 million pounds. Obviously, a huge amount of increase into road maintenance. It's both the responsibility still, as you'll be aware, of York and North Yorkshire to actually deliver that work. We are just the funders, but we've managed to secure a lot more funding to get it out there. I agree with you that the potholes, obviously this time of year, are always worse because of the weather. Increased rain and frost opens up a lot of the potholes. So we need to look at actually how we're fixing potholes, and is it better than doing the longer term resurfacing of roads rather than individual potholes, which I believe is a big policy that York have been delivering on, which I, as noticed, have made big improvement, particularly on the road going from Elvington back into York, the B, whatever it's called. Obviously, having that fully resurfaced has meant that that's lasted much better than individual potholes. So we have put some money in there as well, and we're also going to be pressing on with, pressing the matter for when we're resurfacing. Also, what other improvements we can have at the same time. So instead of just resurfacing, can we look at things like how we can improve cycling infrastructure, things like drop curbs at the same time, rather than doing one thing and ignoring everything else. So that is a big focus on us. As you'd be aware as well, York and North Yorkshire have both suffered with active travel funding for many years. York has been ranked 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5, and as is North Yorkshire. A big focus on ours is to get that ranking up, because funding, as you'll be aware again, is aligned to where you are ranked. So our funding from Active Travel England is quite small, which is why we created the £4 million Active Travel Fund to help speed up the delivery of active travel provision, not just infrastructure, but actually a large piece of it. When I've been speaking to Chris Boardman from Active Travel England, is actually that mindset piece, and actually and I particularly focus on things like schools and making sure our young people are supported in walking, running and cycling, and making our schools safer, because that's a lot of the journeys, particularly in the morning. But that wider approach from Rhiannon, our Active Travel Commissioner, will be taking in all types of journeys and is very experienced in active travel and delivering on projects as well.
Can I just have a follow on that? There's quite a lot to unpack, and I think it'd be helpful to know who is going to implement that and when we will see the timetable. Implement
of
what you just said.
Well, as I say, with highway maintenance that is delivered through York and North Yorkshire councils, we are the funder. It's up to the local authorities to actually deliver on things like potholes,
right?
Which has been the case for forever. And then in terms of the active travel programme, we've got, I say, an active travel commissioner now who will be working closely with both local authorities to on the delivery side of projects and making sure they are implemented. And obviously, Rhiannon is doing a huge amount of work speaking with community groups as well to make sure that their voices are heard. It's not just local authorities. This is why part of the funding is also geared towards local campaign groups and local active walking and cycling groups to be able to have a say in it as well, because it's very important that communities felt that they're heard on active travel as well, and not just local authorities. That work is ongoing now.
Thank you, Councillor Waller. Is that okay? That was your supplementary. Thanks very much. I've got Councillor Chance next.
I'm going to look at another thing, David, and that's housing strategy. When you're considering your housing strategy, I have very strong views on this one, because I come from north of Whitby, where we have communities where, for instance, Staithes has 30 permanent residents now out of 300 houses. Brunswick Bay has 12 in the lower village, and this is causing a major problem. It's also stretching out into the villages now as well, and we're finding that where shops close, they don't reopen because there's not the demand for them. You get a lot of people in the summer coming to holiday lets, but in the winter, the villages are dead. So I would ask you to take that into consideration in your housing strategy, as well as the rental situation and the great need for rental properties on the coast. There's, I can't remember what it is now, but I can remember when I was at Scarborough Borough Council, we had 97 applications for every rental. So, there's a lot of people being disappointed and on the housing ladder for a lot of years. So I would ask that you look at that one. I came across something as well recently within my own division, where a community has been established which is larger than the community that existed. It doesn't pay council tax. It should actually pay double council tax, in my view, for the properties that have been sold there. They're individual properties and they're sold on a freehold basis. But somehow the developers have found a loophole in the law, and this loophole needs to be brought to the attention of government, because we've now got a community which is actually larger than the parish not paying its way. So that's something you might need to look at as well when we're discussing things with government. And the 80% market rate for affordable properties, I'm sorry, but on the coast they're not affordable.
Yeah, so I'll come back to a few of those bits, that's amazing. So yeah, you'll be aware that our round 2 and round 3 of our housing funding has been very much geared to affordable and social homes. So as an example, building 3 homes in a village like Raskelf at an affordable price is equally as important as building 3,000 homes in the middle of York Central, for example. And that's why we've got a big focus on that affordable and social homes. As you say, on that 80% rate, it's quite varied, actually, the rental, the affordable rate, because it depends if it's like a shared ownership house, is a social, if it's social rented. So saying 80% sometimes is not the most exact way of describing it. It can actually, if you're a first-time home buyer as well, so it can actually fluctuate quite drastically between about 30% and 80%. So it is a vary, so it's a hard one to really pin down, but I absolutely 100% take on your point. I think the average house price to salary in York and North Yorkshire is circa about 9-10 times. So the affordable aspect of housing is really important. I welcome North Yorkshire's, I think York have done it as well, North Yorkshire's 100% council tax on second homes. I think that's a great thing to be able to put forward. I think it's going to raise about 12 or 13 million pounds for the local authority as well to actually ring fence into housing, which I really welcome that policy. But you're right, a lot of our communities are quite literally dying because they are full of second homes, and the need is there. The schools start closing, the shops start closing, and they become ghost towns. And it is a problem, as has already been raised in central York with Airbnbs, as it is to our coast areas, our Whitby and Scarborough and everywhere else in between, which is why I welcome the housing numbers that we have from government, the 1.5 million homes. It's absolutely imperative that we do press on with those, because places like York and North Yorkshire have over 10,000 people waiting on a housing list. That's why we have to be building those homes and really pressing on with those. And that's why having the SPP, the Partnership of Homes England, is really key, because they can be the ones who can really help us unlock a lot of these housing challenges we face. And just to be aware of the 3 areas of a concern for us with the Homes England, our top priority is that affordable element of it. And actually we're working with government now to get more flexibility around brownfield housing, because the affordable rates of building homes in a place like North Yorkshire is very different to building them in places like a Barnsley or a Stoke or something like that. It's just so much more expensive on the coast and in places like national parks. I can't remember the numbers of homes built in our national parks are affordable, but you're talking single figure homes over a long period of time, which again is a problem in those areas as well. So it is a really big focus on ours, but it's working with Homes England to show that the affordable rates that we can grant just don't make sense in a place like ours, because it's so first place. So that is a big focus on that, and it's a big focus of why our housing strategy is very much geared towards the affordable and social homes element of it. Yeah.
Will you be looking at limiting the new homes to local buyers in some areas. The reason I ask that is, I mean, I have an estate in Whitby where you can actually just travel around the estate and see all the key boxes on the doors. Because they've just been bought for rental. So that is a problem. The other problem, of course, is we've got a lot of national park, and it's all very well saying we need all these houses, but if you're not getting cooperation in the villages from the national park, we've got a problem there as well.
Yeah, and that's why we need to. It isn't just one size fits all. It's not just let's go build 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 homes on individual sites. Those, as I say, those 3 or 4 homes you build in those small communities that are very much for the community, and with that community buying are equally important. As I said, some of the projects we've supported have been literally 4 homes in a small village, as Rascal, for example. But those homes will mean that 3 or 4 families can stay in that community, and it keeps it alive, doesn't it? But it has to be done very much in conjunction with the community. And as I say, that's why our focus is on not just those really big key strategic sites, but those small ones as well. And when you deal with national parks, it's even more challenging because having actually that space, and because our funding is for brownfields, again, you don't always have the as much brownfield as you do in North Yorkshire as you do in York. So again, that's why we want that more flexibility around how we can spend that money. And also we're looking at a process of how we can actually redevelop current buildings that may be currently used for other purposes or sat dormant and empty, particularly in our towns, so places like Scarborough, for example, where you might have a lot of empty retail space or upper floors. Is there a separate strategy we can have to actually explore how we can repurpose those, is probably the right term, into housing? Because again, there isn't anything more environmentally friendly and efficient and better use of space actually taking a building that's already built, but how you can convert that. Again, it's difficult because of planning and everything like this, but if we've got an opportunity to do that as well, that's what we're able to explore.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillors Stewart, Peckham and Fisher waited. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, 3 questions on the visitor levy if I can. So you talk about potential levy of £2 per room, and obviously you talked about maybe York and North Yorkshire people within the region would be exempt. Have you thought at all about having a higher rate for overseas people than UK people? And I say that from the viewpoint of, I'm sort of thinking people do talk in the UK, and if somebody in Lancashire is thinking about, I'll pay this levy, but someone in Yorkshire won't, it might put them off. Whereas obviously overseas, it's least likely to have an impact. So it's particularly that point about overseas. On this potential hypothetical figure of £50 million, you obviously talked about, some of the money could be used for cycle racing and all those sorts of things. Have you considered the idea of, and it's possibly what Councillor Merritt touched on, have you considered the idea of a particular amount of money simply be allocated to York and to North Yorkshire councils of that money to say, guys, there's going to be an impact on frontline of tourists. I'm not going to pretend to do project X and Y. I'm going to give you £4 million. Here's a check, and you're going to sort out the front line. And however that ratio may work. So is that particular thing about an allocated amount something you considered? And the third question is, to me, many things that we do in the region are about York and North Yorkshire, and they're not joined up. So one area is transport, and hopefully you can make that joined up. In the world of tourism, I think that it still remains very much the case in that, we're not pitching York and North Yorkshire, we're pitching York on the one hand and North Yorkshire. And do you regard that, I think we're on a journey, so they do get more joined up, and obviously with the Mail CA, hopefully they are. Do you regard that as a fair criticism of the world as we sit today? And if so, how joined up do you think we are on, sort of scale of 1 to 5 to get more joined up? Because, Chinese tourist is not going to just come to York and not North Yorkshire or vice versa. So, thank you.
So we are exploring things like what if locals would pay, if overseas would pay more. I think it needs to be really clear. Every single thing is on the table right now. We're literally at the first step of we are finding out all this works against us, how it's going to be collected, if it'll be a nominal figure, if it'll be a percentage, if it'll be for residents who live here and elsewhere, how it would work on wider CAs that are borders. Because it'll be a mail power, I'd imagine every single mayor would instill it. So it's not like you wouldn't pay it if you're in West Yorkshire or South Yorkshire, but then you do pay it in North Yorkshire, because as a mayoral power, it's been pushed by all mayors. So I'd imagine all areas will eventually have it. But I do take your point on, if you're not paying it over there, then would you pay it over here, type of thing. But I would imagine all mail areas would have it. But we have certainly been exploring if you are of a York and North Yorkshire resident particularly, not paying it. If you're the resident of York and you go and stay out for the weekend, and we are exploring how that would work, and if there is a way that we can mitigate that, because it's not as easy to say as we find all these things. Allocating a separate thing for North Yorkshire, again, kind of touched on, yeah, that is something that, again, we're exploring about how the impact of tourism, which is in the large positive for the region, but again, it does put strain on frontline services, which is why a big focus on that is actually how we can support that, not just for the tourism sector, but for the residents who live here all year round. So again, if we could bring fence a piece of money for both local authorities, that is something that we are looking at as well, because as I say, we do understand that it is very positive for our economy, it creates a huge amount of jobs, but it does put a big burden on our areas as well. In terms of the joined up approach, you're 100% right. I think for a long time it has felt like two separate entities, which is why having the LVET now and bringing York and North Yorkshire together is really key. And I think we have a very strong brand in York and North Yorkshire as a brand nationally and internationally. People recognise it, and that joined up approach between people do come to York and then they explore the Dales and the coastline, and we want to make sure that that's working even better. So having the LVET now, which is made up of both York and North Yorkshire, is a really key deliverer of that. And again, that's a place where we can funnel funding through to then go and actually develop that tourism strategy for York and North Yorkshire collectively, because that joint approach is really key, and that's our strength. You know, the fact how we can support people going from York and into the Dale and vice versa when we're attracting things like sporting events, say like British cycling, even if it's delivered in the North Yorkshire area, that's going to have a positive impact on York as well, with hotel stays and visitors such. So yeah, I'd say obviously it hasn't been very well joined up, so I'll probably give it a 1, but now with the LVEP and moving that way, it is 100% changing, and I think our brand as an area is much stronger on that tourism offering than it is other areas of York, I would say.
Thank you. Supplementary? No?
Well, it's not supplementary, but I'll ask because the Mayor has answered all my questions, which I'm grateful. It's a different question if I can. Is that all right? Or do you want? Okay. Yeah. So on the men's mental health, I really liked your paragraph about the money and what you're doing and everything like that. And you've done some great stuff on men's mental health, which is a really important area. Some of it I've looked at and sort of thought, well, that's brilliant, positive, great, and everything like that. But is it a mayoral thing in terms of there's such a massive area, so much mental health? For me, you really major in on the the damage it can have on the workplace and employment if people aren't employed and everything like that. Is it fair to say that very much is where you see your role as mayor in men's mental health going, about the employment side particularly, or is it very much a general thing? Because I think this paragraph majors in just the right place.
Yeah, I would say so. The research that's been developed is kind of almost identified the person that's most impacted through poor mental health, and generally speaking, it's in a sort of construction type work element, that mid-40s age. That tends to be the person who is most impacted by men's mental health in our region. So heavy industry, agricultural, mid-40s, that's the kind of demographic. We know that the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 is suicide, and it's that kind of bracket. Unfortunately, and again, it's a bracket that we have a lot of. We have a lot of men in that area who work in those fields, which is why with men's mental health or any health agenda, you can go and try solve everything, and unfortunately, you probably won't. It's too thin. So we've tried to narrow it down and then expand out from there. And particularly, unfortunately, you have to work in economic output as well, and so we have to show a return. And I would say that saving somebody's his life and improving their health should be the biggest outcome you have, but actually the impact of things like people being on long-term sick has a big impact on the economy. Because a lot of people out of work, the cost. So keeping people in work as well is really important for that economic output, but also for their own health outputs. We're also exploring now, we've had a research team come to us because they really like what we're doing on this, about looking at more of a younger person strategy as well, more like a sort of men and boys strategy. And actually, because it's all well and good, we don't want to get to where we're supporting people at crisis point. It's how we can go crisis point back 10 years and actually make sure people aren't getting to crisis point. So how we can support people through their teenage years and early 20s, so we're not getting to a point where we have such a high level of men, unfortunately, committing suicide at that age. But we can focus in and then expand out. If you try and solve everything in health, you're not going to achieve much, and we don't have all the money in the world. So
yeah, and thank you for that extra question, because I think that's really important, something that we really do need to focus on. So thank you for that. Councillor Packham, I do apologise for mispronouncing your name.
No problem. It's better than Pac-Man, which I usually get. You didn't. Thanks. Yeah. In your report, you mentioned the collaboration with Tees Valley on jobs. I'm more interested in transport. And Councillor Stewart mentioned the joined up approach between North and North Yorkshire. My question is, are we also continuing to develop a joined up approach with adjacent authorities? I think particularly West Yorkshire, because we've got a very long border with West Yorkshire and we've got a lot of cross-border transport involved there. So I know that you were involved in talking to the mayor in West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire. And I wondered if that had actually been developed any further and how that was going in terms of collaboration.
Yeah, so you'll be aware that we've developed the plan for rail for Yorkshire with Oliver and Tracy, South and West Yorkshire Mayor, which we're waiting on announcement from Northern Powerhouse Rail, which will be anytime soon. We're hoping and see how involved that piece of work we have had done will feed into that. Obviously, that is a really big priority for us. That connectivity into South and West Yorkshire is really imperative. We know a lot of people from, say, York and Harrogate look to Leeds. Our residents in Selby look to South Yorkshire as well. So that cross-border, particularly rail connectivity in that point, is really key. What hasn't really been done before, which is where we are now of having this bus franchising pilot, is how franchising would work in an area like ours, which that piece of work has already started, but how that works on that cross-border piece as well, and how our model of buses would link into more established areas who may have a different franchise model in, say, South and West Yorkshire, which hasn't been done before. So we're kind of new. Well, I mean, we're all new at this. So again, it's how that would work and making sure that connectivity is seamless, because our residents don't care if they're going from north into South Yorkshire. They just want to be able to get there in the most fluid way possible. So that's part of that franchising work that we're doing now, is how it would work on our cross borders, not just in the south and west, but obviously up into the northeast area as well, and heading over the Pennines as well, which some people I've heard do like to go over the Pennines. But so how that all works on our borders, we often sort of see North Yorkshire is almost a bit like Australia. Everyone lives around the edge and they travel out and then come in on each day. So that cross-border connectivity is really important, which we say why we've done the plan for rail, which we're waiting on the NPR announcement around the further work of that. And then on that franchising piloting work, which we're doing now as well, and how that links into West Yorkshire in particular, because they're a lot further ahead on that, and then obviously links into South Yorkshire as well. So it's kind of an ongoing piece, but it's very much, it has to work for residents because they don't care, do they, quite frankly, but it has to be that joint.
Well, they do care, that's the problem.
Yeah, no, on that. Yeah. But it's making sure that when they cross that border, it's just, they just do it. You know, there is no, I'm going to have a different ticket and all this sort of stuff. So it's how it all works, because it's really important for our region in particular.
So my only follow-up is, can you make sure that we're kept informed as
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Very much.
Just as a follow-up on the Northern Powerhouse Rail announcement, it's been waiting since June to appear. And it's what have you done in the discussions that you've had to ensure that there's investment on this side of the line, and in the lack of infrastructure on the East Coast Main Line to deal with the bottlenecks that HSD was meant to solve?
As I say, as I touched on there, with Oliver and Tracy, we developed the plan for rail for Yorkshire, which is a £15 billion proposition to government, which we had that piece of work done, which is a very phased approach, but it's a very realistic approach. So we haven't said we want £15 million today. It's a phased approach that takes into things like Haxby Station, which obviously we've received, the half-hourly train to Scarborough, for example, the expansion of north and south of York Station, obviously the capacity issues, particularly here on the East Coast Main Line, which is a great problem. So all that is in that report, which I can send over to you if you'd like to read that over Christmas.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you.
Thank you, Watson. Touched on what I was going to ask my usual standard question. You confirmed at the last meeting that the funding had been allocated for the project of Haxby Station by the Department of Transport. Has that been delivered? If so, where? And have you any knowledge of the progress of the scheme? Because it was supposed to open in March 2026 originally, and we're still waiting for the go ahead. It hasn't been through planning yet, so that's a little more. I can't emphasise how transformative that will be for the people. There's about 20,000 people living in Haxby, Wheaton and Strensall and the surrounding area. Will have their lives transformed by a station that they can get locally without having to travel all the way to York and run the what I can only describe as the torture of the congestion around Gillingham and such areas. So have you any news, please?
It is a Network Rail project, as you'll be aware, not our project. So, but we are regularly speaking with DfT to make sure it is on track and on track. My God, it is on time, and we are working with them to make sure that it is. And with Network Rail, say it is a Network Rail project, so it's slightly out of our hands on that side. But I can get a follow up from Network Rail if you'd like to sort of see what is in that project. I say it is. We've been able to secure the fund, but it is very much their project. But we are working with them and DfT to make sure it is delivered, because it is so important for the whole wider area, but in particular that area around about the house building potential as well, and that linking to Yorkshire.
Yeah, because nobody's to Yorkshire, what's happening, but stuff just seems to be black hole that money's not into, nothing's happening.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. So no supplementary, happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, councillors, the majority of councillors have had a chance to ask Mayor Scaife a question. I've just got Councillor Watson. Would you like an opportunity to ask a question, or are you happy at the moment?
I'm quite content with the answers I've heard so far, Chair.
Excellent, thank you. So, Mayor Scaife, you've been so good at answering all the questions, but I would like just to eke it out just for a couple of minutes, because according to my watch, you haven't done your full allocation. So are there any...
A pay per minute, is that how it works?
Okay. So I'm going to ask other councillors if they've got any burning questions that they really would like to ask. And I probably will only have two councillors able to speak. So first it was Councillor Merritt and Councillor Stewart. So that's the allocation. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to pick up the Mayor's earlier comments about transparency and welcome what he was saying there. I have raised one other issue, which is the transparency of meetings and the fact that the new Transport Board, the meeting was neither webcast nor recorded. And there is also obviously the Economy Board. I think absolute key thing is that all future meetings from this point are both webcast and recorded. Otherwise, in effect, it strains the to see what's gone on to those people who can actually physically get to the particular location of the meeting on the particular day that they're held, and that's frankly just not acceptable.
Yeah, we did raise that. We are on both those points. Keen to start live streaming them. So, but there is a cost to that. But obviously, we want to be transparent as possible. So that's what we're exploring. But also on the other side of it, we do want to do the meetings all over York and North Yorkshire, not just in the two same places. So it does add a slightly different dimension and making sure the facilities we're going to do have the ability around live stream, which I know has been a bit of a challenge at times, hasn't it? So we are taking that away and seeing the facilities that we can go to, so we get that widespread, but also that they have the facilities to do the live streaming and not just always doing things here and in York, because we want to make sure that members could get to the places, but also that we are getting out and seeing the patch. So we are taking both those things on board, absolutely, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Councillor Stewart, you will be the final councillor.
You were sort of phrasing it as though the meeting needed padding out until 11:30, but then you added burning questions after I put my hand up. So you have a burning question. We've obviously got lots of stuff here about consultation. And from my point of view, sorry, in the main report, I mean, not in your report, lots of stuff about consultation on transport and obviously the whole process for it. And I come at it from a viewpoint of you're elected, you've got your mandate, and a lot of the consultation that we're doing is actually just a massive cost to the authority and a cost to residents, and nothing really changes. So I'm thinking, for example, of things like the police precepts and what level should it be that you ask lots and lots of people, as opposed to the sort of more specialist consult where we're engaging with people. So you engage with partners, discuss with counsellors, all those sorts of things, discuss with groups on mental health or whatever it may be. So do you think that's a legitimate criticism, that some of these consultations that you're sort of having in the broadest sense of consultations are not changing anything?
No, I don't think that's fair.
Okay. What would be the?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's it. In which case, what would be the biggest changes that have come to date, as a result of consultations?
So, for example, on the initial precept we did last year, for example, obviously we had to raise a big precept last year to cover the huge lack of funding that our frontline fire service received over 15 years while it's been frozen. So having that consultation, we had to go to public to ask them, because we were asking them for a lot, and we had to make them aware of the challenges that we are facing as a frontline service, but we want to get their input into what their priorities were. Obviously, if we're asking them to increase the precept by 24%, whatever it was, you want to be transparent and honest with people, and you want them to be able to have that input on that big wide scale. I think that's fair, and I think residents would expect that. I think on a more sort of smaller scheme, things like our activity sport fund and our mental health, that's where we've been brought those real, because you can end up having a too broad a group count. You can have 30, 40 people, have 34 different opinions, and you can end up going nowhere. So things like on our movement activity sport and our mental health fund, for example, we'd have the real experts around the room. So people who come from, a health background, so the NHS, Paul, the professor, there's real experts around the room, quite a tight group who really know how to get that delivered properly and in the right way. So I think there's got to be a way of doing it where you get the most impact, particularly on the public, as possible, so you can get that real buy-in and understand where they are. But you don't want everything to be on that scale, because you wouldn't end up achieving everything, which is why you have that blended approach, having small tight groups to really develop a plan around movement activity sport and mental health, where it's really specific. But then you obviously want that wider buy-in from the public. If we're saying to them, we have a funding problem here with the fire and rescue service, we want your input into it, what your priorities are, which is the same we're doing this year with the precept, for example. Obviously, we've seen the impact of wildfires, and we'd love to do a lot more around the preventative, particularly on the fire, because that's where you're going to be able to make money go the furthest. But we want people's priorities of what they want to see from the fire and rescue service, not just mine.
Thank you. And finally, just a question for myself. Obviously, our train services, something that I'm quite passionate about, helps businesses, helps our workforce. Have we got any updates on the Yorkshire Scarborough?
We believe it will be part of the NPR work, which we're waiting on that announcement. So it has gone to the Secretary of State, and we are speaking to government about it all the time. We think it'll be part of the NPR and the wider piece. But I believe they are already started training the additional drivers, because that was one of the main challenges around that half-hour train, is actually the people to actually go deliver the service. But I can assure you we're still pressing very hard on that.
What is that timeline?
Unsure at the minute, because it's down to the time it takes to physically get the people in and then train them, that sort of stuff. So it's not the easiest to manage, because if they're not getting the right people coming forward to the training, then that's the impact, So it's a few things out of our control on that, but we are very much pressing forward. So I think it's a real game changer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Answering all the questions. I'd just like to, from the chair, I get this, that the tourism levy is obviously a very large subject, and it's of interest to many of you, and there is a lot to discuss. So we are only at the pre-consultation time at the moment, but perhaps maybe we, as a committee, could bring this particular subject, particular item back to this committee, because I think that there's a lot more to explore about that. So if I could just have a general affirmation of a few nods, if you think that that is something that this committee, I think we've got general affirmation of that, Mayor.
Chair, what's the next meeting? Because the report from Yorkshire St John will be done in sort of March time. So if it does align with that, we could always bring that if it aligns. If not, it might be the one after, unfortunately, because of the date align. But that is meant to be done in March. I don't know the exact date in March.
We've got some plans, but just
17th of March is our meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see if it's finalised by then. Obviously, we can push and see. But the plan was to have that work done in March. So if it could be, then we could always bring that report in.
That would be
possible. If not, we could always share it afterwards.
That would be really helpful. Thank you. So,
just on the same issue, obviously the timescale for the submission to government is February. I wondered whether it might be just possible to either have an update at the extra meeting we're proposing to have on the budget for that particular submission, and or perhaps a small task and finish to have a look at it before it goes.
I think that's sensible. Will, would you like to say anything on that? I mean, I know we are thinking about having an extra meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Meeting, but
We were.
obviously we can take that suggestion away and see how it works with your timescales and trying to pull something together.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So that brings a close to this session. So I know that you're a very busy man and need to get off. Once again, hope you have a lovely Christmas.
You.
All the best for the new year.
Lovely Christmas, everyone.
We'll just have a minute, councillors, just to let Mayor Scaife exit, and then we can get back onto the agenda. Thank you so much.
Everyone have a good Christmas, New Year, and you all that jazz. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good, that was very informative. So now we're moving on to item 6, the local transport and update. So we've got Rebecca Gibson to join us. Well, yeah, welcome to the meeting. And if you'd like to just give a brief introduction to the report, and then we could have some questions, if you're okay to take those questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Members will be aware that it's a statutory function of the local transport authority to develop and maintain a local transport plan. When the combined authority was formed, the local transport authority function passed from the two councils to the combined authority, and so the requirements to prepare the local transport plan now sits with the combined authority. The local transport plan sets out policies and strategies for transport. It's widely formed in an area. And it also is a requirement that the local transport plan has a delivery plan setting out how those strategies and policies will be enacted on the ground. The local transport plan needs to be vision-led based on previous stakeholder and public engagement in our area. We feel that we already have a reasonable idea of what that vision should look like, taking into account some of the mayor's priorities. But we want to revisit some of that stakeholder and public engagement to ensure that we're on the right track with the plan policy. There's also a key requirement that the LTP links into other strategic plans and documents, so for example, both the councils, and in particular in North Yorkshire, obviously that work is ongoing at the moment, so we're working very closely with North Yorkshire's planning officers to ensure that those two pieces of work are developed consistently. As I mentioned before, as well as the strategy and policy elements of the local transport plan, there'll be a delivery plan, which will form the basis of an annual programme. The likelihood is that the delivery plan will be set out at a high level, sort of over a 5-year period, but then there'll be work annually and probably more frequently than that to review that delivery plan to ensure that it's prioritised again according with the mayor and the plan's policies and principles. There's a requirement for the plan to be prepared as soon as possible, because at the moment we have no sort of strategy basis for the transport schemes that we want to bring forward. So we're working to quite a tight timescale for drafting the plan. Normally, the development of a local transport plan would take around a year, but because of some of the work that was done by both North Yorkshire and York councils relatively recently on stakeholder and public engagement, and also with York on their local transport strategy, we feel that we can work to a 6-month initial drafting period for the plan. So we're hoping to have an initial draft for consideration by council partners probably by the end of April next year. We've engaged consultants to support us on the development of the plan. The current transport planning team at the CA is only very small, so we needed that support both in terms of just manpower to develop the plan, but also around some of the analytical work that has to be done in developing the sort of evidence framework and baseline for the local transport plan. We're using data that's held by local authorities and the CA, but also partners like Transport for the North. We are just starting to develop an approach in terms of reviewing the work that was done by both councils on stakeholder engagement, and to revisit that and re-engage with some key stakeholders. We would hope that we'll be able to come back to this committee both formally and potentially informally, to have a discussion around the development of the plan and how that moves forward. As I mentioned, we're hoping to have a first draft of the plan by the end of April. That will then allow both councils to review it, come back with any potential revisions, with then a final draft hopefully being ready around May time. It's a requirement of the development of the plan that we go out to a statutory public engagement before it's finally adopted, hopefully around the end of the summer next year. And just to pick up on the point that was made earlier around cross-boundary working, we will, as a matter of course, work closely with our neighbours on the development of the plan, as that we have done on their plans as well. But we already have sort of good officer relations with neighbouring authorities as well, to ensure that cross-boundary matters are taken into account when we're drafting that plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that background information. I have got Councillor Haslam, who has indicated to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for the report and the updates. Just before we get started, I don't know if this is a declarable interest, but I will declare it. I chair Scrutiny of Transport for the North.
I declare it. Well done.
When you're developing a local plan, it's a local transport plan, or then you need to take into account the local plan, the local economic plan, and the climate policies. So what I am concerned about is that you've said that you only have a small team, which is fine, but you're going to use consultants. I want to understand who the project manager is going to be at the combined authority, and how you're going to manage these consultants. Having been a management consultant for over 22 years, I understand that management consultants need to be managed, and people will do what you inspect, not what you expect. So I'm very concerned about the governance over these particular issues. You've already mentioned the fact that hopefully there's information feeding in. Well, there's information from Harrogate that was just pre-COVID and may well be slightly dated, and I would like to make sure that that's completed as well. The other thing you talked about was engagement. And I know engagement is the next item, but I think one of the things that I will be raising is that engagement needs to be commensurate with the size of the prize. And therefore, something like this needs quite hefty engagement. So if I summarise, I'm interested in the governance, how the project's going to be managed, who's going to manage it, how we're going to ensure that those three other policies are involved. And generally, I want to see a great job, but I'll do everything I can to support you.
Thank you, Councillor Haslam. So in terms of management of consultants and the sort of management of the project itself, I am the lead officer on the day-to-day work on the project, but ultimately responsibility for it will sit with our new Director of Transport, Claire Hoskins, who is joining us in January. Between those of us within in the transport planning team, we've all got significant experience of working on local transport plans. The consultants who have engaged have also got significant experience of working on local transport plans, and have worked on a couple of nearby LTPs very recently as well. So when we undertook the assessment for the procurement of those consultants, we had a very good response to the tendering opportunity, with some really experienced and knowledgeable consultants. But the one that we picked ultimately, we feel will do the best job for us, and essentially have got a lot of relevant recent experience in that. Turning to the comments around engagement, I think we're aware that obviously both councils, as I mentioned earlier, undertook quite significant public engagement in 2023 and 2024. So York had the big transport conversation, and then North Yorkshire had Let's Talk Transport piece, which engaged both the public and stakeholders. And there was a lot of reporting done on that, a lot of really good feedback from that. And I think we want to revisit that. What we don't really want to do is redo that, because think people will say to us, well, hang on a minute, it's only 5 minutes since you were asking all these questions about transport. Why are you asking us the same things again? So I think we want to re-engage with key stakeholders. We will be going back out to the public as part of the statutory consultation that we have to undertake. But I think our feeling is that we don't really want to redo that consultation because a lot of the work has been done very recently. And we feel that that's still really relevant at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Haslett, are you okay with that?
Yeah, could I ask that before you or that the councillors are involved in the decision as to what the statutory engagement looks like? I'm very concerned that it's not that our engagement is not what I'd call inclusive. So people that haven't got access to the internet, etc. And if I recall the level of engagement that went on over a relief road around Harrogate, the council at that time spent £35,000 just on billboards, never mind the engagement piece. So I do think it's important. I take your comments, but I do think that people need to be informed. So my question really, or my request is that you perhaps come back to councillors before you actually determine what the statutory engagement is.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Merritt and then Councillor Waller waiting to ask questions. Thank you, Councillor Merritt.
Yes, thank you. A number of sort of concerns about this. This seems to be an incredibly fast timetable to deliver a full local transport plan. And first of all, acknowledge your point about the consultations that have taken place in York and North Yorkshire, but the York consultation was basically on sort of principles and a overall strategy. It was not a detailed local transport plan or a consultation on a detailed local transport plan, particularly the sort of 5-year delivery aspects. That was still to be done by the City of York through drafting a place and mobility plan that took place on entities, which the combined authority is currently funding, but I'm not sure whether the timescale is compatible with what is actual local transport plan. I think that's absolutely crucial that piece of work is done before the local transport plan is consulted. Draft is completed. Second issue is you did talk about consulting the two local authorities between the first draft and the statutory consultation, but I think in fact you only gave 1 month for that. That consultation doesn't just need to be with the officers of the individual local authorities, it actually needs to be with the members as well, including opportunities for the relevant scrutiny committees on the two authorities to have a look at. So again, the timetable looks incredibly over-ambitious. I've got other specific points to raise, but I'll stop at that.
Okay.
I think that's quite an important chunk in its own right.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Councillor. So with regards to your comments initially about the consultation that York undertook being at a high level and the detail being needs to be sort of similarly scrutinised and put out to public engagement, I'll take that comment back to the head of transport and ask for his views on that, and we can respond back to you on that particular issue. With regards to the consultation at the end of the drafting period, I think if that amount of time needs to be slightly lengthened to ensure that the appropriate process is followed, again, we can look at that and take that into consideration. I think I want to sort of really reiterate that through the process of developing the plan, we're really keen that we're working very closely with the two partner councils. I mean, we do as a matter of course anyway at an officer level, but the the Transport Advisory Board, which obviously has members from both authorities on it, will be engaged throughout the process, and we will also come back to this committee with information. But we will look at how we can ensure that through the process of development of the plan, there is very close working with members from both authorities to try and ensure that at the end of the process, nobody's turning around and saying, well, that's not what we agreed to, or that's not what we expected. But we're very, very aware that it's a really, really short period of time, a very challenging piece of work to deliver within the time. So I think collaborative working is absolutely essential to ensure that we get a plan that everybody feels that they are happy to support.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Merritt, I'm just going to go over to Councillor Waller, and then if you've got another question, I'll come back to you. Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Chair. I had thought this report would have a timetable or an indicative timetable. It wasn't there, and on the web there's the tendering process, which suggested that the consultant would be working from October. But clearly they haven't started. So
they have started.
They have started.
Yeah, the work is underway.
So I think if we're in the spirit of transparency, it would be essential to have a map of the timeline of what's going to happen where, who is going to do it, because some of the things are being said that the local authority will do it. Well, I think we need to be able to ask our local authority, well, which officer is doing this? Because I'm not getting answers to questions already from my own authority. So, and maybe because, so I think as York is a city of 200,000 transport planners, then you can't shortcut this because everybody has a view about it, and I'm there does need to be transparent. So I think you're getting the point. And if we've got someone new starting in January, then there does need to be a close handover so that we're aware of what's going on. And if separate scrutiny meetings need to be scheduled in order to fit in with your timetable, those things take, to get it to a diary takes some time, but it's better doing it now than in 2 months' time when you're even closer to the deadline.
Thank you, Councillor Waller. I do think your points have been noted. Did you want to come back on that, or are you?
Just on the timetable, we have got a detailed project plan, so I can make that available to members. That's not a problem at all. As you noted, that we are slightly behind where we wanted to be. That was just around the sheer number of responses we got into the consultation. So it took officers slightly longer than anticipated to assess those. But yeah, we are underway now. I think we've been working on with the consultant now for about a month. So we're slightly behind, but not too much.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Thank you, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Yes, just picking up on Councillor Waller's observations here, also Councillor Merritt's earlier. I expressed concern as to what I see as a rather administrative timescale. I do, however, think it is something which is so important to both the city and to the county. And it occurs to me that there should be some further consideration as to resourcing in order to ensure that proper delivery of the plan occurs within, say, a 12-month period. And I think to dovetail with this, it's equally imperative that there is very regular reporting to members of this committee, and in particular outlining how far work has progressed, and specifically the major projects which exist across the county and within the city. And at this point, I find the drum once more of the York Northern Relief Road, which has been doing the hokey-cokey for more years than I care to remember, and which is something very seriously compromising not only the convenience of residents and visitors, but the economic vitality of the cities. It's absolutely imperative that an adequate and outer relief road for Northern York is provided in the shortest possible period.
Becca, would you like to respond?
Yes, just with regards to your comments on resourcing, the transport planning team at the Combined Authority has been very small up until now, really. But in January, we've got, I think, 3 members of staff joining the team, all to work in the transport planning section, but with different specialisms. One in particular to assist me with the development of the local transport plan itself. Again, an experienced transport planner who can bring a lot of benefit to the work that we do. In terms of the relief road, I'll take those comments back. It's not something I'm directly involved in, but I will report that back to the head of transport. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart, please.
Yeah, very much a sort of similar theme of the comments rather than the question. And I think it's where probably this meeting is less than ideal in terms of we have the mayor and then we have the officers, because if it was a question with the mayor, it's the comment from my point of view of disappointment, because when the mayor was coming into being, I thought that transport was the be all and end all. That's not right. I thought transport was the big thing, the tangible difference we made. And I'm amazed that we are where we are time frame wise in terms of a year and a half down the line, that we've just got the transport team going from effectively non-existent to very small, and then a key person being appointed, in a few weeks' time. We're obviously going to have this transport consultation, which is going to take, several months, and that feels very rushed, particularly given we seem to have a lack of capacity in York at the moment in terms of transport. And obviously there's understandably nothing in the report. So I think any information you can share on the timeline, I think would be really, really important. But sort of a year and a half into the mayoral term, then we have this, and then we have the implementation. It just feels like nothing is really happening. And so I just think that as soon as possible, we need to have as many key people in as many ways as possible across York and North Yorkshire to, really drive this forward in some sort of way, because there just seems to be a lack of progress. But I'm not expecting you to respond, so it's not your fault. You're in to do a job, but everything we can get on time frame. And Councillor Watson's point of the Northern Ring Road, obviously the fact that's not on your radar is obviously a bit concerning, because I think from your point of view, it's probably our biggest sort of thing at the moment. So but as I say, all the comments I'm making are very much where we have been rather than where we are now, and they're not really for you, they're for the mayor in terms of the scheme. So the more we can get information wise, the better is just my thing, and the more say we can have, particularly because we're going to potentially be looking at implementation. We may have had a change of mayor, who knows, so in terms of the timescale.
I don't think we're expecting a response, but if you want,
I was just going to come back, Councillor, if it's okay, just on the just on the staffing, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of people joining in the new year, and that will make a considerable difference to the capacity within the team. So we're really positive about that. Looking forward to those new members of staff joining. Just in terms of the Ring Road, when I say it's not on my radar, clearly I'm aware of it. It's just it's being dealt with by another officer. So it's all the sort of major schemes element of this is now being looked at between the Combined Authority and the 2 councils. We're actually starting that work at the moment in terms of feeding in all the work that's been done by the 2 authorities on major scheme pipelines, alongside the sort of more bread and butter, operational stuff around maintenance, network management, and the public transport side of things. So that work is underway. We're still waiting for some advice from government in terms of flexibility of funding, and some final second figures. But as soon as we have all of that, we'll be moving forward with that at pace, because we need to really get that all in place. Again, subject to consultation and ongoing engagement.
Thank you. Do you want a supplementary?
I'll just ask one specific. It's not supplementary again. So when you're discussing with York, can you ask them what on earth they're playing out of community transport? So York members will know what I'm referring to in terms of, we used to have a thing called Dial and Ride. It ceased to exist 2 years ago. We had a task group reporting to lots of suggestions. Nothing whatsoever has happened. And we live in a world of North Yorkshire seems to do community transport pretty well. The rest of the country seems to do community transport pretty well. But in York, we're being, badly let down by a lack of it. So if the mayor and yourself can take an interest in what's going on in York, that would be, I think, beneficial.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have no other councillors indicating that they want to speak. However, Councillor Merritt and Haslam have said, please could they have small questions? So I'll hold you to the small questions, and then I think that we can move on to the next item. Merritt.
Yes, thank you. I want to come back to the background outline, what the LTP will cover, how it will cover it, and so on. Para 3.3 it envisages a core LTP document with a number of specific strategies. Later on in the document, you do recognise that obviously areas are very, very different, and big difference in geographies and all the rest of it. I'm wondering whether that framework for the LTP is necessarily the right one. I know from having previously looked at Oxford's, which is part of the old, was part of the Oxford County Council. They did have a core document, but they actually also had area-specific documents. Because obviously, if you have mode-specific, yes, you will have particular types of needs in sparse rural areas, long-distance bus travel. But in a city like York or a city like Harrogate, and probably Scarborough to the same degree, of much more importance is the local bus network. And I'm not, so that means you're going to have a very mixed document in terms of mode-specific strategies, but more particularly in dense urban areas, you actually need a holistic approach. You can't necessarily look at one mode in isolation from all the other modes. So I'm wondering whether actually you should be looking at a different construct, as I say, that in fact has your core strategy, the big strategic stuff for the area as a whole, including the cross-border issues, and then local specific ones for the areas where you've got those knotty set of local issues that need holistic approaches.
Thank you, Councillor Merritt.
Thank you, Councillor.
Are you okay to come back on that?
Yeah.
Quite.
Yeah, I can come back on that. So one of the approaches that we've been looking at for the LTP in terms of how it's set out is that that core strategy that you sort of mentioned is actually built around different place typologies, I suppose you could call them. So obviously the core urban centres, market towns, sparse rural areas, coastal communities, that type of approach. We're just working through that at the moment, so we've not firmed up on whether or not we think that's the most appropriate way to go. But I think it is along the lines of what you've suggested, Councillor. But I mean, in terms of the most specific strategies, I think the intention is that there is a core overall vision and strategy, and then some of the real detail, which again would probably link into those place-based frameworks, would then link into those specific mode strategies, which would sit sort of underneath the LTP itself.
Yeah, thank you for that. And finally, Councillor Haslam.
I'll be quick. Since 2019, I've been jumping up and down trying to get climate mitigation and climate adaptation as business as usual. I want your assurance that they will be business as usual during this process, so that that is taken into account as well. There's no point in us creating a thing that we have to redo in 10 years' time. So my request is that as your strategy, and you're laying down the strategy, not necessarily detail, you've had a lot of detailed questions. I'm trying to just raise the bar and talk strategy for a moment, and I just want those, because they're a big risk to the roads, to the rail, and to people. So I expect, or like, reassurance that climate mitigation and climate adaptation are part of this process.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, and absolutely, it will be Councillors might be aware that both councils undertook some work again a couple of years ago on quantification of carbon reduction and how that can be managed through transport plans and policies, and a lot of that work will feed into what will become the transport plan. But we also work closely alongside colleagues in the sustainability teams around the work that they're doing on policy and strategy to ensure consistency across documents and plans. So absolutely, yeah, it will be a key part of the LTP.
LTN have done a whole thing on it.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Transport for the North have done a whole piece on it, so you can take that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I apologise because I did say Councillor Hassan was the last, but we've got one small question from Councillor Fisher.
I've got a question on this.
Okay.
I haven't put to you 1:15.
Okay.
I have to leave the meeting early. I just want to check if I leave, will this make this meeting in quorum or will it still quorum?
Quorum's 8, so I
I'll leave at 1.
Be okay.
still be okay.
Yeah, you will be okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. No, we'll be fine to carry on. So in order to move on, I put it to you then from the chair that we received this report and that members agreed to receive future reports on progress of the LTP and activities related to its development and the delivery time, but including, because I've picked that up, especially with timelines included. Would I have a general affirmation of that? Yeah, we're all in favour. Councillor Merritt.
Can I just be clear on that? Because we only have one meeting of this committee in the timescales that have been talked about.
Correct.
So is that actually going to be adequate? Or again, will the task and finish? It's probably at least a 5-1, given this geographies and the rest of it around the county. Being perhaps a more appropriate way of handling this.
Can I just
meeting to match timescales of the work that's being done, as opposed to.
Thank you. Yeah, I take your point. Can I just bring Will in here, because we were going to at the end of the work programme, I was just going to introduce something else, but it's appropriate to, I suppose, to introduce it now because we were going to think about.
Right. I mean, there has been a request around the budget and having a separate meeting, perhaps on that in January. But then obviously there's the issues that have been raised around the fact that we've only got one meeting in March. I don't know how other members feel around, the fact that we are going to have a commitment to having reports through the committee. As has been suggested, is there an appetite for a task and finish group, or are we happy to kind of see how things are in March and then perhaps form something? I mean,
Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the more the better. Is there some way we can do a task and finish of the entire committee, potentially, rather than sort of have 3 or 4 key people?
Yes.
I'm just going to pop out for a minute so we don't come in Cora if Councillor Fisher leaves. So back in 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Packer.
Yeah, I think the problem is because this isn't just the authority. We've got a load of stuff coming forward. We've got another meeting. I just don't think we can fit everything that we need to deal with into the.
Okay, so you're suggesting an extra meeting in between?
I think.
Yes.
I think it's a potential possibility.
Yes, thank you.
I would support an extra meeting, and if we need 6 a year, just while these first couple of years, then maybe that's it. But I would certainly support another meeting. I don't think there's any. I can't see the purpose of a task and finish at this point, because I don't know what it would do.
Okay, thank you. I think the general consensus is we think it's so important that if possible, we would like another meeting. Is that possible? Can you fit that in?
I can certainly find work something out.
Right.
Yeah, I think we could work something out. What might be something for the committee to consider, as well as whether a member from this committee wants to attend the Transport Advisory Board to maintain that interlink between the two. Be aware of the issues that are being raised there and report those back to the committee as well. Yeah, that would be
a good idea as well. The extra meeting. Is there anyone who's got real ambitions to proceed with this, and they would put themselves forward to attend that, because that information would be helpful to bring to this committee? Is there anyone who would put themselves forward for that? Councillor Merritt. So thank you. We will get those agenda papers out and we'll include you as well. Okay, so is that a general affirmation that we're going to move forward with that? It's in the next meeting. Yeah, another meeting. Thank you. Is that okay? Have you got that? Have you reflected that?
Yeah, if we could come back to it under the work programme as well,
yes,
that'd be helpful just to iron out.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're moving on. Yes. Okay, members, thank you so much. So we're moving on to item 7. Rebecca, would you like to join us, please? And welcome today. I know this is a new committee experience. So just remind members of that, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. So would you like to give us a brief introduction? Just summarise the key points, Rebecca. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm here to talk about the Combined Authorities consultation and engagement process. So I am a senior comms officer within the CA's comms team. So just to give you a bit of background to where we come from, I'm sure most of you are aware. We've brought together experience within the communications and consultations arena from the previous LEP, the OPFCC, who has got extensive consultations experience, and also external recruitment. So we've recruited in one from WICA, who has many years of consultation experience, and I am previously North Yorkshire Council and led the Let's Talk campaigns for NYC. We know that there's an increased need to consult regarding statutory plans, policy and strategy within the CA. A lot of the previous consultations up till now have been PFC, so Police, Fire and Crime Directorate. But we know in the next year we're going to have to consult around the local transport plan, the strategy for sustainable future, as well as all the PFC work. So we went to the leadership team a few months ago now, and there was an overall agreement to bring consultation campaigns into the comms team, but also to develop a steering group with members from the PFC Directorate, Strategy and Policy, and the Growth Hub, as well as comms, to have an overarching view of all the consultations activity which will take place within the combined authority to provide consistency, to support learning, so we can drive it forward to ensure trust and understanding of the CA throughout all our stakeholders. So we currently use Smart Survey, which is an online survey platform, but we are currently looking at the benefits of procuring a consultation platform, which other combined authority use across the country, but also City of York use a consultation platform as well. Key to our consultation activity is reaching a representative view. It's a kind of key passion of mine to ensure that we're hearing from every part of the region, including our seldom heard groups. So from a communications perspective, an overarching campaign and way forward will support that, because we're developing that trust and understanding. And some of the comms tactics we have used and we continue to use are things like toolkits to partners through our local resilience forum, who have developed a seldom heard groups contact list, for a better word, which we've supported to develop. We make sure that hard copy material is in places that people go. So we're going to our residents and our stakeholders rather than expecting them to find us. We use parish and town councils through toolkits. Members like yourselves, we use. We do face-to-face activities. So within the Police, Fire and Crime Directorate, they do have an engagement team which go out quite a lot, engaging with residents around police, fire and crime issues. One of which is obviously they're going out at the minute around the mayoral general precept. But we also use our experts in our other programmes to support that work as well. We have expertise within the team around easy read surveys to ensure that disabled groups can access our surveys, and we are looking at a comms budget around translation, language translations, to ensure that people who don't speak or English as a second language can engage with our processes as well as looking at things like sign language and Braille for certain consultations. That's a really kind of quick overview of where we are. I think one thing I would quite like to get from this group is see your influences within your communities. You know your communities well. So what else can we be doing to ensure we're reaching into all areas of the region?
Okay, thank you. Hope that wasn't too. That's great. Thank you. And your report was really good. So thank you very, very much. And I'm sure there'll be a few questions for you if that's okay. So Councillor Haslam.
Thank you very much. You said some things that were very warming to my heart in terms of consultation. And I also particularly liked your diagram. But I've got a few sort of comments here that I'll go through as quickly as possible because I too have to leave at 1 o'clock today. And I want to participate in the whole meeting if I can. So you've got a nice flow diagram. Mm-hmm. My concern is that our engagement, our choices of consultation need to be commensurate to the size of the prize. At the moment, I just see it's all the same consultation, whether you want to determine what the colour of the front doors of the council chamber are going to be, or whether we're going to introduce a brand new local plan. So the first thing is that there's a step before you, or your planning step on the very front needs to understand, for me, what's the appropriate method of engagement here? Yeah. Is it a citizens' assembly or is it literally a leaflet?
Yeah.
So that's my first point for you. You said about access for all, so I'm very grateful for that. I think it's very, very important. The other side of this is that once you've gathered the information, it's how it's processed. And I'm not just talking about analysis. I'm talking about who it comes back through. So I'll give you an example at the moment. We've got a town council in Harrogate. It's a very new thing for Harrogate. But we find that the combined authority is consulting with all and sundry. So there's nobody from the Civic Society in Harrogate here, but the Civic Society seems to get a very large representation, but it's 300 citizens out of 120,000. Yeah. And then North Yorkshire are also consulting in Harrogate. But we've also got a town council that's democratically elected. And my concern is that both these entities are trying to impose things on the town, but not coming back through the town council or a parish council, if it's appropriate, wherever you are. So we need something that says we've done the analysis, but how do we take it back through the democratic process, the democratically elected people that can read it and say, yes, that takes all that into account. And so I'd really like to see something around that, because it's causing me consternation, to say the least. I think I'm allowed to say consternation in this meeting. Okay. I'm going to leave it with those two for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you just want to take notes rather than respond?
Yeah, I'll take notes, but I do take your points, and I'll definitely look at how we can close that loop. I mean, we do close the loop to residents, but I completely take your point around how we close the loop to democratic.
That's true. There's just one other point, which is you could actually have selected members that fit all the different fit all the demographics, so you can have a statistically representative sample, and that might be another way of doing it. Sorry,
okay, Chair. No, thank you. I've got Councillor Packham and I've got Councillor Fisher waiting, so thank you very much.
Yes, thanks. Mine's more of a geographical question, because I'm aware of the fact that this is a massive authority. Yeah. We've got a mixture of big settlements, we've got market towns, we've got very sparse rural areas, we've got the coast. I wondered how you manage the fact that you've got to somehow adapt your consultation to meet all those different population densities and such like, and in particular whether or not, when you carry out a consultation, you then analyse where you're getting the answers from to make sure that you're not actually missing out on any particular demographic, particular area even. You obviously have things like you have meetings in village halls and things like that. And I wondered what the basis for selection was for that sort of work. And as I say, how you make sure you don't miss, particularly the sparse rural areas, which are going to be difficult.
Thank you. In terms of how we manage it throughout a campaign, we look at our data on a weekly basis. Near the end of a campaign, we would go to daily basis, so we can see that we're getting that representative view. Currently, what we do is look at former district areas within North Yorkshire and then York outer and inner. I take the point that that might not give us that full representative view, and I think we need to look at how we change our approach to ensure that we are getting the really sparse rural areas, the really kind of urban areas. And it is as a new combined authority and a new approach, that's what I want to hear from you. So how we can then take that away and look at how we can ensure that we are reaching in to those specific areas. So we are in a bit of a baseline situation at the minute, so we are just looking at former district, but it is definitely something I'll take away and consider how we can actually look deeper into the data.
If I can come back with you on that, I don't think you will get the right result by looking at it on a district basis.
No.
I think at the very least you need to look at it on the basis of market catchment areas, market town catchment areas, and probably for the sparser rural areas that's not enough either. But I think that would certainly bring it down to a much better idea of where you're getting your responses from and noticing any gaps.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. My question about how the consultations were put together, because in the last parish council meeting, we looked at a consultation that's going on in York at the moment, and every single councillor said the decision's already been made because all the questions are leading us to a certain conclusion. And it reminds me of the great time in the ex-Prime Minister when Sir Humphrey managed to convince Bernard Woolley that he's both in favour of conscription and against conscription, simply by the way the questions are put. The public often feel to do a consultation, the decision has been made, it's all leading us to that. Can we make sure, please, that all consultations are as neutral as conceivably possible and not designed to lead to a certain answer?
I totally agree. Sorry, I'm going to be honest. I totally agree. I think at times there are tick box consultations, and that's something that I'm kind of really keen on to ensure that residents and businesses and stakeholders have an understanding, but also can inform what we're doing. So sorry, I can't say that. It's something I work with the programmes. I do work with the programmes to ensure that we are at the right stage when we are going out to consult, so they can inform what happens next.
Thank you. I think we all want that. So finally, Councillor Merritt, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Two specific comments you mentioned in para 5.2, parish and town councils. The main urban area by the periphery in York is not parished, but we do have ward committees which were designed to try and address that particular gap. So I hope they've been included. I think more particularly, you've also acknowledged engaging with disability groups, which are very, very much welcome. But there are other sections of society that are not well engaged. The deprived areas, and we have quite a lot of small deprived communities within the city who are difficult to engage with. But need to be there in the consultation. So I'd hope we'd look to what we can do to particularly pick up those hard to reach groups, and I'm sure there's equivalents in the North Yorkshire area as well. So thank you.
I can just come back on that. So as part of the local resilience forum work, we have a list of, I think it's currently around 90 groups from Seldom Heard groups, so ranging from disability groups to really rural kind of areas, working how we can get into work with working parents, because we know that they don't always engage with consultations. So that list is constantly reviewed, but I will take your points and see if we can add anything on.
So can I
Thank
just ask a question on that?
Very quickly, because I've got two councillors waiting, so thank you.
I'll come back to it.
Okay, so do you want to go on the list as well? Okay, you're all very enthusiastic, councillors. Thank you. So Councillor Stewart and then Councillor Chance.
Yeah, sorry for indicating late. I was just relaxing into the item and then I heard "and finally," so I thought. Yeah, so my point is just going to be on sort of consultation fatigue in terms of on transport, for example, in York. We have a transport strategy, we have transport plan, we have a movement and place strategy, and I can't keep up with them as a member at all. So the great public out there, you know, have no chance whatsoever on it. And so people will sort of feed into something. They won't be sure what they're feeding into, and they won't be sure how that relates to, will there be a bus there to take them where they want to go, or a train? And then they won't feel something's changed, and so they'll switch off, you know, from it. And if we add in obviously a whole new layer about the CA, then obviously that makes it all more complex. So my particular point was going, whenever we consult, is it worth having as one of the items of the consultation, just the officers look back at previous consultations in the area and have that as something that's actually a tangible part of a report? So they say, look, Mr. Mayor, we've done this consultation, we had the following things come out, but we're also aware that just a year ago, your consultant in the following area, and this came out. So that's not as relevant as the research we've had today, but it is worth looking at, because we have asked so many people, so many questions over time, and then we just seem to bin all the last ones, and those people potentially don't come back. And we've talked about the harder to reach groups, and I totally agree it's very important on those. But I would argue we're probably going so far on the harder to reach groups that we're actually almost giving less weight than we should to the increasingly silent majority who are silent in responding to consultations, but very noisy on press, online bulletin boards and that sort of thing. So it's a particular point about looking back on some of the consultations just as part of it.
Yeah, I can feed that back to the programmes. Obviously the programmes will work with us on the consultation. So it's a question for us to actively ask what consultations have taken place, how can we feed that information into what we're doing. So it could be, X number of people said this on this consultation, this is what we're planning on doing, can I ask you about this?
Thank you. I've got Councillor Chance and then Councillor Peck.
I'm going to come back on what Paul said originally, and that is, can we be very careful of political pressure groups? Because I know of one in my area, which is, it sets itself up as a community network, and it's not a community network, it's just a political pressure group. Yeah, so can we be very careful about those?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That kind of leads into my question, which is, how do you select the groups that you actually do consult? How does your consultation list form itself? Do you talk to people? Is it just people you've consulted previously?
Do you mean the seldom heard groups, or do you mean in general?
In general.
In general. So we work with the programmes to identify their specific audiences they want to reach. From a comms perspective, if it's a general, we will look to deliver a campaign which will reach across the region to ensure that we get I don't want to say as many people as possible, because that doesn't necessarily give us quality answers, but a representative view across the region. If a programme wants to consult with more specific audiences, we will work with them to ensure that we reach into those groups as a targeted group. So we would have that overarching consultation comms campaign, but then we'll do some targeted work with specific groups as has been identified.
Identified by
the programme and us in collaboration, and I would hope that the programme would be working with their kind of stakeholders.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. Time is ticking on, but would anyone else like to ask a question or feed in? No? Thank you. So just to bring this item to an end then, so we need to note the progress that's been made and to continue to provide feedback how the combined authority can maximise reach, inclusivity and effectiveness for our consultations and engagement and work with residents and local community. I think we've captured all that, and to endorse the proposal to procurement and to a consultation plan. So are you all in general affirmation of that? Is that okay? Thank you. I think there's some nods and
Could I just?
Yes.
The consultation must be commensurate to the size of the prize.
Exactly. Okay. Yep. That's fine. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on. Thank you very much for joining us. You don't have to stay, so thank you very much. So we're now. Councillors, we're nearly there. We're nearly there, councillors. You've been great. So we're moving on to item 8, the work programme. So we're going to note the report, but Will, would you like to just talk to this, please?
Yep. So the work programme is printed, I suppose. In terms of the covering report, I've tried to add some more detail that was raised at the previous meeting around setting out an approach for how we become a bit more strategic as a committee, and listed some of the departmental work that's been ongoing since then to try and improve things. As I say, the work programme is there. I've got a note in there about meeting in January around the budgets. So the Director of Resources has been in touch around wanting to plan a session with ONS members. The intention at this stage, if members are agreeable, is to have that as an informal briefing, and just touching on what has been proposed earlier in the meeting, that we perhaps look at a more formal meeting in the kind of mid to late February region, although I'm mindful that it is budgets meetings around that area. So that's just something I'm going to have to
work with.
Yeah. But if anybody has got any specific comments on the work programme, please.
Personally, I will come to you, Councillor Haslam. I mean, I think the work programme is absolutely fine. I am aware about our time constraints. I do think that we should have a budget meeting where it could be on Teams, because I think that that's also important and be quite effective. If you can fit it in, I do think that we need, with our transport, that we need to have another meeting. However, I'm sure logistically, will you be able to sort that out for us, Councillor Haslam?
I just want you to clarify what you meant by an informal meeting, because I think possibly it could be more appropriate and time saving. So, for example, it's taken me 2 hours to get here today, and it'll take me 2 hours to get home. So I've lost the whole working day. But if they're informal and can be online, then I'd be much happier.
Me too.
I mean, that's what I was thinking along those lines. And also what we've done at North Yorkshire, as you'll be aware, is that when we've had informal briefing sessions with committees, we've done comprehensive notes, and they've also fed into in this, it would be the combined authority.
So I would support that as a role rather than yes.
I personally think that's the way that this committee should go. I think that we're all, time poor, and we all just need to have maximum out of what we can get, so that we can feed in properly and appropriately timely. As members have been saying, it's all about timelines, isn't it? So have we got general affirmation of that? So, Councillor Watson, yes, if you like to come in.
Just a question, Chair. What is the constitutional position in terms of our meeting online?
Well, we're unable to have a formal meeting online at the moment, although the government are committing to remote attendance in the near future. We don't yet have the ability to do that. We can meet informally and remotely. We can have task and finish groups. We can have briefings. That's absolutely fine. We can do that remotely as much as we wish to. The important point of view from our view as officers is we need to feed what comes out of those informal meetings back into the formal meeting process, so there's a formal record. So I think if we were to have task and finish groups for the budget or for particular transport issues, as Will suggested, we would need a proper record of that coming into the next overview and scrutiny meeting here, so that the public can see, as well as members, exactly what's taking place in the meeting.
But if I could just come back on that, the reason that I think that they're so appropriate is because we can get a general agreement of how we can move forward, and then it can be rectified. Whereas if not, we have to wait, which doesn't always suit our timelines. So I'm all for that. Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, I think the sort of Teams meetings that we've had, and I'm obviously quite new to the committee, really good, having more of them, really good and everything like that. I think the further items for consideration to be programmed, really good summary of all the things we should be looking at. I think it's a really big issue that obviously those are our future meetings and are currently entirely blank in every way apart from the March one. Yeah. So I think governance-wise, it's really important we get ideas in there just from literally the further items section. Don't mind if they're changed, don't mind if things are kicked back, but I think it'd be great to see the plan because there's some really brilliant topics in here that I think it'd be great to see at the teams, great to discuss and everything like that, but equally great to have, vital to have in the formal room meeting here because, you know, fundamentally today's agenda has been very, very light in substance. I think to get more of these things tangibly in there, the future and the change would be very important.
Thank you. And what you said, I'd like to bring Will and Paul in, but Paul's going first.
Yeah,
okay.
I completely agree in terms of that forward look business we have on the work programme. As we've always set out through this committee, the first year has effectively been an extended induction session. It's a brand new organisation, it's a brand new way of working. We've tried to make members aware of what devolution is and what the combined authority has to do. Now we are at the sharp end of a lot of delivery of these programmes. What I would say is a challenge that we have as an authority, and the way it's slightly different to councils, is there's a lot less direct delivery in terms of the functions that we deliver directly to the public. A lot is heavily programme driven. So we'll create a programme and a prospectus, we'll go out and we'll accept applications and then we deliver on that. So a lot of it can be quite short term in terms of delivery. What we're working towards as officers is trying to get that much greater forward look at what those programmes look like and what we have coming in the future. So a lot of the work that we do in terms of the scrutiny work programme is based around our forward plan that goes to the combined authority. And that has been a little light into the 3 or 4 meetings ahead. I have published a new version yesterday, which is now getting into July next year, which is slightly further looking. And it might be worth, if we do have an informal meeting coming up in the next couple of months, maybe we put some time aside in that to pick through the forward plan and start prioritising some of the work for this committee and what it wants to look into.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I think we do need to be forward thinking as a committee, and we do need to pick up on everything that's going on and be as active as we possibly can. Councillor Haslam.
Yeah, I chair scrutiny of Transport for the North. One of the things about Transport for the North, which is very similar in some ways to a combined authority. If I said they don't do a lot, that would be unkind. But you know what I mean. They're not actually delivering. They're not the delivery piece. They do a whole load of information that I think is absolutely brilliant. But one of the things that we have there, and I don't know whether it can be fitted into the constitution of the combined authority, but everything that goes to the main board comes through my committee first, and we have scrutiny first. And so taking your point that this committee should line up with the forward programme of what the combined authority wants to deliver, my question would be, is should our future roadmap, now that we're almost trained, though you will always be learning, is the room for that actually it's scrutiny first? Because I don't see at the moment I don't see the loop afterwards of what, or I don't see how the loop is going to work, because on a normal council you've got that calling ability. But I don't know if we will have that calling ability, but whether it works, you know what I mean? Because the combined authorities, North Yorkshire's big, the combined authorities even bigger. But that's just something that I would like to just put out there.
Thank you. And the membership of this committee does seem to be constantly evolving and changing, doesn't it? Do you want to go in there, Councillor Merritt?
Yes. pleased that Paul's managed to update it, the forward programme, because I think that's part of how we can make sure we do pre-scrutiny. And that's, as I've said at previous meetings, I did look at it, but before obviously you'd updated it, and 3/4 of the items on it were on dates that are already gone. So it wasn't entirely helpful, and it didn't go very far forward at that point.
Yeah.
That's obviously essential, and having that information available before the papers go out rather than 3/4 of the way through the pre-meeting period would be quite helpful. But I think it comes back to the point, the CA is meeting monthly. We are meeting 3 monthly. With 3 monthly, if an item comes on the forward plan in month 5, we actually only have 1 meeting before that appears, and then we want to make a decision. Well, we want a pre-scrutiny item, and then we've only got 2 months left in which to get that organised. So having a minimum, the minimum of 6 months in advance. But I think it comes back to the point Paul and Bob were raising earlier. Do we actually need a higher frequency of the scrutiny committee meetings to partly try and help deal with that? So I think that's something we ought to come back. I'm not necessarily saying rush a decision today, but I think that's something we should specifically look at, perhaps at our next forum.
Yeah, I think all the points are absolutely valued and sensible. And I suppose that's where the briefings come in. So I think we just need to look at how we run our business and how we do our business. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, just in support of that, I looked at the list of future things that we should consider and marked the one and started to mark the ones I thought were important. And I gave up after a while because I thought they all were. And I think that puts us in a problem because I don't see how we can possibly fit all of that into the time periods we've got.
Well, thank you. I mean, we've had a good general discussion about that, and all the points are absolutely valid. So we'll move on from the work programme to urgent business. I have no urgent business. Obviously, we do have our meeting on Tuesday, the 17th of March, but you are going to be contacted by Will, am I right in saying that, regarding what we've been discussing at this meeting? So I'll close the meeting and wish you all a happy Christmas. New Year.